This is the Introduction to C Programming number 1 video. Course Overview, SET-151, C Programming number 1. Course Description, an introduction to the C computer programming language. Topics include decision statements, loops, functions, arrays, strings, and pointers. The material in this course is taught from a manager's perspective. I used to be a software project manager, and I learned many painful lessons about what not to do. The most important programming lesson I've ever learned was to make my code readable. That will be a consistent theme throughout this class and all my other classes that I teach. Now, new programmers or inexperienced programmers intuitively grasp this. They understand the logical reasons behind this, and they embrace it wholeheartedly. The most difficult time I have teaching this is with experienced programmers that already have bad habits. And I have to get those people to change their habits. Now, I don't ask people to change their habits because I say so or because I'm an instructor. I do it for logical reasons, and I will give you those logical reasons throughout this course. So we're going to be doing two things. Actually, three. We're going to be learning the C programming language. We're going to be developing our C programming skills, or our basic programming skills, and we're going to be learning how to write readable code. Course structure. This course is divided into 15 sections. There's one section for each week of the semester. Content for each week is divided into modules, assignments, quizzes, and/or tests. Modules focus on a single topic or group of related topics. Content for a module may be videos, slideshows, written materials, and/or readings. After viewing the module content, you'll need to complete all the assignments and take any quiz or test. The deadline for all assignments, quizzes, and tests is usually midnight on the Saturday for that week. Now, don't forget there is a 1-week no penalty late policy, so if something's due this Saturday, you have until next Saturday to turn it in without any penalty whatsoever. What is C? C is a computer programming language. It was created in 1972 at Bell Labs by Dennis Ritchie. You can see from our book, which I'm viewing online, that it was based on the language B, and it involved help from Ken Thompson. So, little interesting bits of trivia. Why C? Well, back in 1972, computers had a very limited resource. They didn't have much RAM, probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 8 to 16K. K stands for kilobytes. Kilo is the metric prefix for 1,000. So computers at that time could store about 16,000 bytes in memory. Wow. A byte is basically the same as a character. So the computer operating system, programs, and data all had to fit within 16,000 character limit. CPUs were also slow. Today's CPUs run at roughly 3.2 gigs. Gigs is short for gigahertz. Giga is the metric prefix for billion. Hertz is a cycle. So 3.2 gigs is 3.2 billion cycles per second. The more cycles per second, the more instructions that can be executed. 3.2 billion cycles means today's computers are really, really fast. CPUs back in the early 70s had speeds probably in the area of 700,000 hertz range, which is substantially slower. That would be, wow. If you multiplied that by 10, you'd get 7 megahertz. So today's computer speeds are roughly 5,000 times faster. Now, that seems fast for even back then, but you have to realize that was for a mainframe. Only corporations or universities could afford those, and the CPU time had to be shared between all the different users. Wow. So imagine slowing your computer down by 100 or 500 times, and then sharing that with 10 or 15 other people. At the time, hard drives were still new, and according to Wikipedia, stored only about 30 to 75 megabytes worth of information. Mega is the metric prefix for million. The first home PCs didn't come out until the early to mid-80s, at least the useful ones. So the computers back in the early 70s were big, slow, and expensive by today's standards. With limited CPU, RAM, hard drive space, every byte of space and every instruction had to count. There couldn't be any waste at all. The language designers wanted a language that enabled them to write programs quickly, but they also needed very tight control of all the resources. Thus, the language C was invented. C was designed for control. The language does absolutely nothing for you. It will do only what you tell it to do, no more, no less. An example of doing something for you would be how Visual Basic initializes variables to 0 for you. If you declare a variable, it automatically has a default value. Everyone give VB a hug. Oh, don't we all love VB? By the way, Visual Basic is my favorite programming language. I respect C greatly, and I know it's a great tool, but it is not a joy to use. It's certainly not the joy that Visual Basic is. Now, those extra instructions to initialize a variable to 0, the CPU has to execute those, and that takes time. Those extra instructions also have to be stored in memory and on disk. C doesn't do that for you. If you want the variable initialized to 0, you got to do it yourself. Now, the philosophy that I like to use is that C assumes you are an expert programmer and that you have a limited resource. For example, CPU, RAM, hard drive space, or with today's mobile phones or whatever you want to call them, iPhones, what do they call them? Tablets, you might have limited battery power, all right, or some combination of those. And you need or want to specify everything yourself. Now, you can't get mad at C for not helping you out like VB. It wasn't designed to be that way. You can't say a motorcycle is terrible because it only has 2 wheels. It was designed that way. Now, if you want to race around and go on dirt trails and you want to get someplace quick without a lot of effort, then a motorcycle is a great tool, but you don't want to go grocery shopping for a family of 4 with it. Now, again, you can't complain about that. That's the way it was designed. Now, trust me, in a few weeks, you're going to be mad at C. Sometimes I call the C class VB appreciation. The more I use C, the more I like VB. But remember, C was designed to be a lean, mean, fast programming language. If you want a language that does something for you, you should be using another language like VB. Boot Camp. SET is the only major that requires the C programming language. That's one of the big differences that sets SET apart from the other majors. That and calculus and physics and VB3. This class is going to be like boot camp for programmers, and I'm serious. If it doesn't hurt, you aren't learning and growing, and trust me, it's going to hurt. I'm going to push you as much as I can. I'm not doing it to be mean. I'm doing it to prepare you for the business world. I need to get you to the point where you can solve real business world problems. The other majors are like regular Army. SET is like the Special Forces. We are mean. Why is C in the SET major? The answer is simple. Because it's hard. After you learn C, all other programming languages will probably seem easy in comparison. C is one of the few languages that makes you do your own garbage collections. Garbage collections is where if you allocate a hunk of memory for something, it's your responsibility to free that hunk of memory before the application ends. I tell students that VB is like your mom. VB will help you clean up your toys. C is like your dad. He makes you clean up your own mess. There's a lot of work involved for this course. Plan on spending 10 plus hours a week just for this course. And that's even for you really talented slackers. Not that I was ever like that. Now, I know some of you, up until this point, have been able to wait probably until the day before an assignment was due, and then sometime that night you bust open the book and you figure out the problem, and you can probably bust out the homework assignments in about an hour. That is not going to happen with this class. Now, some of you will take note of that, and you will heed my advice. And a few other users are going to go, yeah, Callahan, you don't know what you're talking about. That's okay. You're very quickly going to learn. Now, I would prefer to have on my team students that are really, really good, but and the things don't come easily to them, and they have to work at it so that they develop really good study and work habits. and they get on top of things, they manage their time, and they are disciplined. Now, I have some students that are really, really talented and things have always come easy to them, and they usually turn out to be some of the worst programmers because they don't know how to budget their time. They don't know how to be disciplined and focus on an assignment that really challenges them. Alright? So I'm not saying this to be mean or to scare you. I'm saying it, well, yeah, I'm trying to scare you a little bit into getting good study habits. I say that to set your expectations. Now, there will be at least one homework assignment per week. I am going to keep you very busy. There are two homeworks in particular, structure, stress, and part pain, that come out about week 6, 7, somewhere around there, that students remember years after graduating. Alright? Now, some students don't finish them because they are so challenging. Again, that's not meant to scare you, but to prepare you. So, when I release the assignments, you want to read them right away and start thinking about them and start planning out what you're going to do. The book for this class, C Primer Plus, is a typical C book. I don't think it's very good, but I haven't found one I like better. I recommend that you check out the free books or the free ebooks that on the link I provided in the on Blackboard if you're having trouble or don't like the book. You can find which one which explains things in a way that makes sense to you, and then if you want, you can buy a used copy from Amazon or Abe Books. I'd like to write a C book, but I don't think I'm going to get a chance anytime soon. I hope I do, and then I can publish that. As I stated at the beginning of this video, I teach this class from a manager's perspective. It has been my experience that it's been my experience and that of many other programmers that readability is the most important goal on any project. Say that with me. Readability is the most important goal on any project. Most C books, programmers, and forums write very terse, which is short or brusque code. You'll see lots of variables named I, J, and K, X, and Y. You'll see procedures names abbreviated like calc instead of calculate. There won't be any of that in this class. Why? Because readability is the most important goal for long-term maintenance of a program. Some would consider this heresy. I can't go walking alone in C-Town or I'll get beat up because of that. In fact, lately I might just disappear if a bunch of C programmers get a hold of me. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I am the program chair and instructor for software engineering technology major. What does a program chair do? A program chair determines what courses are in a major and when they run. My background is I have a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Science from UC and I graduated in 1994. I finished school on Friday and I started a full-time job on Monday, and it was one of the happiest days of my life. As far as my business experience goes, I started off as a programmer, became a senior programmer, a project leader, and eventually a software project manager, and that was just 4 short years out of college. I was very aggressive, and I was very blessed to be on over 30 projects from beginning and end. By God's grace, I landed this teaching job. I started off as part-time instructor, and then I got tenure. Tenure is this thing you have to get, otherwise you can't keep teaching. It's sort of supposed to help you be able to talk about controversial things like, I don't know, readability for code without getting fired. And I've been an instructor for over 10 years, and I was last year I was promoted to program chair. I have been on over 30 projects from beginning to end, and this is the most important thing. I had to support those applications after I released them, which meant my phone rang if there was a problem. And I very quickly learned what to do and what not to do to be a successful programmer. And one of the worst things that can happen is you get deluged with technical support phone calls. Now, if you get a bug in your code and it gets into the release version, that can generate one technical support call for each user. If any of you have ever dealt with the public or had to do technical support, you know how painful that can be. So much of what I do is designed to prevent technical support. Alright? So I like to front load all of my problems. And that's where readability comes in. I do all the work up front, so it saves me work later. Now, I know over 10 different programming languages. I know Active Server Pages Classic, ASP Classic. I know ActiveServerPages.net. I know Assembler, both 8088 and 68,000. I know C, C++, C#, HTML, Java with the Abstract Windows Toolkit, and Swing. ABT, actually, spelled that wrong. I know JavaScript, I know VBScript, I know SQL, I know VisualBasic.net, and I know Visual C++ with Win32 API and MFC. As far as databases go, I know Microsoft SQL Server, I know MySQL, and I know Oracle. What that means is I am a really geeky geek. And I say that not to brag, but to establish my credentials with sober judgment, so that you take what I say and seriously. Now, just about every time I tell you to do something, I'm going to give you the logical reasons for doing that. Alright? Now, some things I don't like doing. They are a pain. But I know that if I don't do them, it will be worse later on down the line. Alright? So, I'm saying this to establish my credentials so that when I tell you to change your habits, your programming habits, that you take that seriously and that you understand the logical reasons behind that. Some of the material presented in this course will contradict with what's in the book. Alright? There will be logical reasons for that, and I'll do my best to explain what we're doing and why. But in case there's a conflict, the online material takes precedence over the book. Remember, readability is the #1 goal. Coding standards help us achieve that goal. Questions. If you still have any questions about this course, you're going to need to email your instructor. Now, I develop the content for this, and sometimes I give it to other instructors, and the course is run with them teaching it. So basically, they post all my content, and then they do the grading and answer questions. So you should check to see who your instructor is first and ask them questions, but usually by email. If they can't help you, you can always email me at patrick.callahan@cincinnatistate.edu, and I will help you with any technical course, even if I don't teach it. And that's the end of this video.